first real video from inside Titan conquers the web. Millions of people are thrilled by this footage, which shows us the Earth-like moon Titan in a way never seen before. A spacecraft the size of a small car crashed over Titan, giving us images of a world that seems strangely familiar and yet alien. Do you think it's possible that humans will one day live on this distant world? We will now show you why this is possible. Enigmatic moons. Can you imagine what the least explored objects of the solar system are? That would be the moons. We know quite a lot about Earth's moon, and there are 206 other moons in the solar system, and some of them are the most mysterious objects. Some moons may even harbor life. Our Earth's moon is one of the celestial bodies that are considered quite well studied, but even our satellite keeps surprising us. Researchers were even more surprised when they were able to study very distant moons for the first time. The numerous moons of the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn showed some peculiarities. Titan in particular captivated the scientists because this moon is more similar to Earth than any other object in this solar system. Could a moon of all things be the twin of our Earth? Earth and Titan both have dense atmospheres, with Titan's shell consisting mainly of nitrogen. They have liquid oceans, and although Titan is only about 50% the diameter of Earth, its atmospheric density is higher. Both celestial bodies exhibit weather phenomena and seasons. Despite certain differences in size and mass, Titan's Earth-like characteristics are intriguing. Titan is not quite half the size of Earth and one of the largest moons in the solar system. It is unique, that much is clear, and for a long time it was considered a promising candidate for the discovery of life in space. No wonder then that NASA sent a probe to this celestial body, which for the first time sent us images from an Earth-like and very distant world. Saturn's moon Titan has fascinated scientists and amateur astronomers alike ever since, and many people dream of a mission to Titan to unlock all its secrets. The Cassini-Huygens mission. In 1997, a twin probe set out to study Saturn and its moon Titan. Cassini-Huygens was underway for nearly 10 years until it entered the planet's orbit in 2004. Once there, the main Cassini probe was responsible for studying Saturn in depth. Thanks to Cassini, we now have stunning images of the gas giant, detailed photos of the numerous rings, incredible impressions of the massive storms that are larger or as large as on Earth, and completely new impressions of the numerous moons. The Cassini probe was an important milestone in the history of NASA missions. But before Cassini started its mission, there was another highlight that had never happened before in the history of space travel. Cassini had the lander Huygens on board. In cooperation with the European Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency, a lander was constructed to land on Titan, and it was named after the astronomer who once discovered the natural satellite. Christian Huygens was an important 17th century Dutch astronomer, mathematician, and physicist. In 1655, he discovered Saturn's moon Titan using a telescope of his own design. This was akin to a miracle and demonstrated the enormous progress of the technology Huygens had developed. Saturn, which was far away, had been very difficult to see before. Then, to discover one of the moons, tiny compared to Saturn, was a feat of late medieval astronomy. Huygens would probably be rubbing his eyes now if he had seen how, some 350 years later, a small man-made robot landed on the moon he had discovered in order to find out how Earth-like it really was. Titan is so far the only celestial body in the entire solar system that has been shown to have a climate, rainfall, and water cycles similar to those on Earth. However, Titan also has such a dense atmosphere that telescopes have never been able to look down to its surface. All knowledge came from measurements of light emissions and was based on calculations. Excitement was high when a probe was finally on its way to send images from this alien world for the first time. Huygens' descent on Titan. Titan resembles a small planet orbiting a gas giant. If Titan were orbiting the Sun, it would be one of the large planets, because Saturn's moon is even several hundred kilometers larger than Mercury. Because its axis of rotation is tilted relative to the orbit of the planets, Titan experiences different angles of solar radiation over time, resulting in seasons similar to those on Earth. The moon orbits Saturn in about 19 days and 22 hours, and that's the same time its rotation takes. causing the same tidal locking effect we have here with the Moon. In other words, Titan always points the same side towards Saturn simply because its rotation takes the same amount of time as its motion around the planet. Although it's more than 1 billion kilometers away from the Sun, the natural satellite can experience seasons. This is due to its completely different chemical composition, dense atmosphere of nitrogen and methane, and surface temperatures as low as -179 degrees. The existence of a dense atmosphere on the natural satellite results in weather effects such as haze rising and gathering into clouds, rain, lakes, and oceans. Planets and moons that do not have an atmosphere usually cannot hold liquids on their surface. They evaporate into space. Since Huygens, however, we know that these fluids on Titan are only partly water. Most of the oceans and lakes on Titan are filled with liquid methane. Does this now destroy all prospects of finding life there? We'll see. But before we show you that life is conceivable on Titan and that even humans could land there, let's take a closer look at Huygens' descent. First images from an alien world. On January 14, 2005, Cassini released her friend Huygens high above Titan. The 2.5 by 3 meter probe began its risky descent to the Moon. Absolute silence reigned in NASA's control center as Huygens set off on its nearly 2-hour plunge through Titan's atmosphere. From an altitude of less than 150 kilometers, the camera system responsible for recording infrared and visible light was to be launched from Earth. Previously, only instruments were used to measure the exact composition and temperatures in Titan's upper atmosphere. The probe crashed at a speed of more than 400 kilometers per hour. A parachute was opened to allow for these images and a soft landing. It did a sensational job, slowing the probe down and slowing it down perfectly. Huygens touched down on Titan's soil at a gentle 17 miles per hour. At 9:43 a.m. local time in Houston, Texas, Huygens became the first man-made object to land on a moon in the outer solar system. The gentle shocks activated other instrumentation. Huygens' technology had been programmed to be largely self-contained to ensure the probe's functionality, even if radio control from Earth was lost. In the first moments after landing, the spacecraft recorded data from the surface of a natural satellite that was not our own moon for the first time in the history of astronomy. We saw a world that has remained untouched for billions of years, and we are the first humans to see the surface of this distant world. To this day, the Huygens lander holds the record for the farthest landing by a space probe. The simple and low-resolution images show us a brownish, rocky world with mountains, valleys, and a uniform surface without plants or traces of living creatures. The sensors measured -179.3 degrees and an atmospheric pressure 1.44 times that of Earth's atmosphere. The sunlight reaching the surface is thousands of times fainter than the sunlight we receive here on Earth, yet it's bright enough on Titan to make these images possible. Compared to Earth, the light intensity on Titan would be equivalent to about 10 minutes after sunset. Huygens also carried a microphone and recorded the sound of Titan's air as she descended. An occasional increase in amplitude can be heard, an effect that has not yet been fully explained. In addition to the stunning images, the Huygens lander sent data about 90 minutes after landing. After that, Huygens' energy supply was depleted and the spacecraft ceased radio contact. After the mission, Cassini began its more than 15-year research journey around Titan. But that is another story. We're still looking at the future of Titan exploration now. No life? Or is there? Those who expected to find traces of life and vegetation on Titan were bitterly disappointed by the Huygens mission. But researchers are not giving up hope of finding life on Titan. The fact that Titan's climate consists predominantly of methane and ethanol does not have to be detrimental to life. Research teams from the US and France proved this when they bred microbes in laboratories that have a methane-based metabolism. Realistically, we have to admit that we have only seen a tiny fraction of Titan. Imagine someone dropping a probe over the Alps or the Sahara Desert on Earth and then saying, "Boring, nothing but mountains and sand." Of course, to explore Titan properly, the best thing would be to send a rover or even astronauts there. That may sound utopian now, but it could be a reality in a few decades. With a SpaceX Starship, currently the fastest and best spacecraft we humans have, It would take 2 to 4 years, depending on the constellation. Humans could survive several weeks on the very cold Titan in special thermal suits and in a research vehicle like the one soon to be tested on the moon. Imagine humans exploring this alien world for the first time in a rover. What lonely splendor would be revealed to them, and what wonders scientists participating in the mission would find on Titan. Titan's gravity is significantly weaker than Earth's. With only about 14% of Earth's gravity, a 1,000-kilogram vehicle there would be 140 kilograms light. Humans would probably find themselves floating on the surface of the celestial body. Titan's gravitational pull is still somewhat weaker than that of Earth's moon. The Apollo astronauts who explored the moon could easily bounce around on the celestial body, and vehicles also functioned reliably. Nevertheless, Titan would most likely not be suitable for a permanent residence. We still know too little about how such low gravity and the basically hostile environment without oxygen and vegetation affect the human organism in the long run. Press the subscribe button because there are many more highlights to come. What would you say if we showed you a galaxy that looks like a penguin or one that spits at its neighbors? The most unusual galaxies in the universe are incredible, mysterious, beautiful, or just plain weird. It's fascinating what shapes and colors the universe forms and what bizarre behaviors galaxies can exhibit in cosmic interactions. We go now on a ramble through the universe and illuminate the 10 strangest and most unusual galaxies of all time. Penguin or dolphin? Galaxies look like spirals or disks, right? Wrong. The interacting spiral galaxy NGC 2936 looks like a penguin or a dolphin. At least 326 million light-years from us, this galaxy is absolutely fascinating and beautiful. Some argue that it looks like a dolphin, while others say it looks more like a penguin holding an egg. The shape varies slightly depending on the angle of view and is definitely unique. The core of the spiral galaxy can be seen as the eye of the dolphin. What you see on the left, and what looks like the nose of a dolphin, is actually a huge star-forming region. All the new stars and the surrounding gas and dust nebulae are shining brightly, making this galaxy really impressive. The shape comes about because the spiral galaxy NGC 2936 interacts with the more elliptical-shaped galaxy NGC 2937, and together they form this galactic beauty. The pair of galaxies is together with ARP 142 and a mystery to science. The two galaxies do not unite, but constantly pull on each other. As a result of these interactions, disruptions occur in the gas, dust, and stellar structures that result in the shape of a dolphin or a penguin. In a billion years, the two cosmic squabblers will have finished their galactic discussion, then they will transform into another galaxy and the dolphin shape will disappear. Rubin's Galaxy. Astronomer Vera Rubin discovered a galaxy that raises many questions. An unusually large spiral galaxy, this formation shows other features such as dusty arms, gorgeous pink signatures of ionized hydrogen, bright blue stars, and a very flat shape. Rubin's Galaxy, or UGC 2885, was formed either by gas accretion, minor galaxy mergers, or both. Observations with the Hubble Space Telescope found evidence of gradual accretion of gas, which would be unusual for this size. The galaxy's immediate surroundings lack larger structures, and already Vera Rubin suspected that her galaxy was able to form such sprawling spiral arms because there is simply nothing around it to prevent it from doing so. Rubin's Galaxy is truly enormous and unique. The Hidden Galaxy. The most mysterious galaxy in our near vicinity is IC 342, also known as the Hidden Galaxy. Probably there is not so much unusual about this galaxy in detail, we just can't see it. IC 342 is considered the most difficult galaxy to observe in the universe. It lies directly near the equator of the Milky Way disk. Here, the sky is very dense with cosmic gas, bright stars, and lots of dust, making it difficult to see this spiral galaxy hidden behind it. The galaxy is said to be only 10.7 million light-years from Earth, which is very close by cosmic standards. Along with Andromeda and the Triangulum Galaxy, IC 342 is one of our closest and probably most beautiful neighbors. Hubble was able to take a few colorful images of the galaxy, and they show that it's actively producing stars and would possibly be one of the brightest galaxies in the sky if it were visible from our vantage point. The Space Candy Galaxy. What does a galaxy have to look like to get the name Space Candy from scientists? Beautiful. As in the most beautiful, and that's exactly what applies to a galaxy about 100 million light-years away from us. NGC 2336 is big, beautiful, and blue. Images from the Hubble telescope clearly show the beauty and sheer magnificence of this barred spiral galaxy, which spans about 200,000 light-years. Astronomers were sure that if there were a beauty contest of galaxies, it would have won. Space Candy is not the largest galaxy ever discovered, but it has lovely spiral arms that are rich in young and bright stars. The bright blue light comes from a large amount of very young and large stars. In the center, however, the Space Candy glows reddish, a color given off by older stars. The galactic beauty was discovered already in 1876 by the German astronomer Wilhelm Tempel. Galaxy within a galaxy. In 1950, astronomer Arthur Hogue stumbled upon a strange-looking galaxy. He studied it and concluded that it was either a unique galaxy or a planetary nebula. About 8 billion stars cavored in the formation, which would correspond to a tiny galaxy. For example, there are several 100 billion stars in our Milky Way. This cosmic wonder has puzzled astronomers and scientists for decades. The center of this galaxy appears as a sphere or cluster of red-colored older stars, while the surrounding ring is dominated mainly by bright blue young stars. Named after its discoverer, the Hogue object is an odd sight. It's likely that the ring galaxy is a result of a previously unknown interaction structure between two galaxies or a galactic merger. It's possible that a violent collision with a neighboring galaxy caused this type of hole in the disk. Hogue himself suggested that the ring-shaped appearance might be an optical illusion, but images from the Hubble Space Telescope have refuted this. The strange neighbor. It's no longer a secret. Galaxies form groups, nurseries, communities of two. They feed off each other. They unite, and they can form neighborhoods, much like we do for the most part. There are neighbors next to whom you prefer to live, and others can give you a reason to move. If you happen to run into Centaurus A in the galactic community, you're probably better off looking the other way. This galaxy has a supermassive active black hole right at its center that is about 55 million times more massive than our Sun. Not only does this black hole have tremendous gravitational pull and gobble up enormous amounts of matter, the cosmic giant also forms toxic jets in the process that extend thousands of light-years into space. These plasma jets are extremely bright, making the galaxy visible as early as 1826 with what was then a comparatively poor telescope. Until today, this rowdy neighbor is the center of intensive research, and it's astonishing that the giant has gathered some small dwarf galaxies around him, which follow him like little servants. If you want to catch a glimpse of Centaurus A, you have to look south in the constellation of Centaurus. This constellation is especially visible in the southern hemisphere of the Earth and is located near the Southern Cross, one of the most famous constellations of the southern sky. On clear nights and away from heavy light pollution, you can try to observe the galaxy with a good telescope. Space vermin. There's nothing that doesn't exist in space, and so here we have a candidate that is called a vermin galaxy. At first, there is not so much strange or remarkable about the galaxy HD 107146, and actually it's quite a normal galaxy, and at a distance of only 89 light-years, it's quite close to our Milky Way system. The galaxy is known for its unusual pairing with a star very similar to our Sun, and researchers would like to study this star more closely. But they can't because the light information from the galaxy and the star merge. So researchers cannot separate the two, and one of the most interesting stars that would exist in our environment must remain unexplored. This annoyance brought the actually harmless galaxy the epithet space vermin. I, however, think that this galaxy looks much rather like a gigantic dandelion. But what do you think? The galactic tadpole. In this galaxy, researchers see the form of a tadpole. The original shape of the strange galaxy was a bar stretching out from the center and surrounded by a spiral. The giant tadpole was formed by a hit-and-run collision with another galaxy. The two just touched, and then each went its way, the passing galaxy pulling out a kind of tail from the other that stretches over 500,000 light-years. Thus, the tail of the tadpole alone is 10 times longer than the Milky Way. The rest of its shape may have been created by the collision of two disk galaxies pulled onto a much smaller galaxy. What we recognize as the head of the tadpole is an extremely clumped-together cluster of stars that resulted from the mass collision event. It's not uncommon in space for multiple galaxies to meet in close quarters at certain spots, to ram past each other, to overlap, or to merge. Through such processes, the strangest shapes are formed, and we enjoy these bizarrely beautiful galactic formations. Images we see now show what it may have looked like 420 million years ago. This is truly mind-blowing. Little Bear. The Little Bear Galaxy gets its name from its location in the constellation Ursa Major, also known as the Great Bear. About 50 to 60 million light-years away, this structure is said to be the prototype of a galaxy. In fact, the Little Bear is one of the few star-forming galaxies in the universe, and it's very metal-poor. Low metallicity means it's not very bright and therefore harder to study. Researchers previously assumed that all early galaxies that appeared shortly after the Big Bang were such low luminosity, low metallicity entities as Little Bear. The fact that the Little Bear comes along somewhat weakly could have, however, still another reason. Because the neighbor steals this galaxy's gas. This shows that there is audacity also on galactic levels, and maybe we have to adjust our picture about cosmic interactions a little bit. NGC 3359 is a giant galaxy and seems to suck all the gas from its neighbor to form even more stars. This galactic cannibalism is unique so far and is being watched with excitement by researchers. Cosmic Yeti. What can a galaxy and the snowman Yeti have in common? Well, they are both legends, hard to spot, and most of the time humans only catch a glimpse of them. Another thing they have in common is the uncertainty of whether they exist at all. The Cosmic Yeti Galaxy was discovered by a team of astronomers who directed the Atacama Large Millimeter Telescope into a distant region of the universe. This revealed that this galaxy existed only 1 billion years after the Big Bang, and was really amazing because it's very large, with a mass of about 300 billion solar masses. It's really amazing that this galaxy existed at a time when the universe was still very young. Nevertheless, so far there is no clear evidence that the object SPT 0418-47 is really a galaxy. Sometimes it appears like this. Then there are hints that it is something else, or that it does not exist at all, just like the Snowman Yeti. If you love impressive videos about space and science, then subscribe to our channel. Have you ever thought about the fact that there are billions of black holes in the universe that can change their position and then possibly come towards us? It sounds like sheer horror, but that is exactly what is happening now. The supermassive black hole in the galaxy PBC J2333.9-2343 has drastically changed its direction due to a mysterious event and is now coming directly towards us. Should we be worried now? A changing black hole. Most black holes are more or less fixed objects. Like our sun, they move through the galaxy, but they remain in predictable positions, much like our sun moves through the galaxy in a specific orbit. Researchers have now also discovered vagabonding black holes, and this can be terrifying. These black holes wander relatively freely and untethered through the universe, and at worst, one will eventually show up right on our cosmic doorstep. Black holes are largely invisible. They are conspicuous only by their gravitational attraction. Scientists are currently sure that the next black hole is about 1,000 light-years away, but they can never be completely sure. We have not studied all phenomena in our galactic environment, and the performance of our telescopes is limited, especially when it comes to mysterious phenomena like black holes. This all sounds very uncomfortable already, but what if a supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy suddenly turns around and comes towards us? That is exactly what has happened now, and we can only wonder what will happen in the future. The strange galaxy PBC J2333.9-2343. A team of international astronomers has discovered a galaxy that has an active supermassive black hole at its center. The processes at the center of this galaxy sound like pure horror. The black hole sucks up vast amounts of matter, creating jets that reach far beyond the galaxy. The nucleus of the galaxy PBC J2333.9-2343 is truly a voracious and deadly monster, but the black hole at the center of our own galaxy is harmless. Sagittarius A hardly sucks in any matter, nor does it exert a particularly dangerous gravitational pull. Now let's travel together to the center of the galaxy PBC J2333.9-2343 and experience firsthand what's going on there. Imagine a black hole, a giant of nothingness, several million times larger than our Sun. The black giant's accretion disk glows brightly as all material attracted by the black hole's gravity and accumulating in this disk reaches extremely high temperatures before falling into the black hole. These processes create jets, high-energy beams of charged particles that travel at nearly the speed of light. These jets travel at incredible speeds through the galaxy and extend far beyond it into the interstellar medium. PBC J2333.9-2343 is a radio galaxy, which means that it emits very strong radio frequency emissions that come from the jets and their interaction with the surrounding interstellar medium. The tremendous energy converted inside the galaxy causes heating and excitation of the surrounding gas, which drives shock waves throughout the galaxy and can lead to star formation processes. The jets cause the interstellar medium in the immediate vicinity of the black hole and within the galaxy to be compressed and extremely heated. All in all, these processes make the galaxy a rather uncomfortable place. In particular, stars that are close to the center or are hit by the jets have an uncomfortable life. It almost seems as if this galaxy produces stars in large quantities, only to have them gobbled up again. This galaxy really seems like a horror, doesn't it? Let us now come to the part that can concern us. First of all, let's look at the question of whether the jets from PBC J2333.9-2343 can pose a threat to us. Here we can give the all clear, because despite the impressive energy and activity converted in PBC J2333.9-2343, the galaxy is too far away for jet streams to hit us. There was no danger to Earth thus far. The galaxy is millions of light years away, and even if radio emissions traveled those distances easily, they would not be a danger when they reached us. On top of that, PBC J2333.9-2343 was moving away from the Milky Way. But now, scientists have observed something at the center of this galaxy that is disturbing, even shocking. The black hole and jets change direction. Change of direction of the jet. Can you imagine how a scientist feels looking at this blazer inside PBC J2333.9-2343 and observing the tremendous activity there? Everything seems far away, but then suddenly it happens and the jet turns its direction. Instead of streaming away from the observer, it turns 90 degrees and now points directly at the observer. Suddenly, the emission of the radio beam increases sharply, and it almost seems as if the observed galaxy has directed its beam at us to say, "I've noticed you." Eerie, isn't it? The orientation of the jets toward us determines how a galaxy is classified. If two jets are pointing toward the sky, they are classified as a radio galaxy. However, if one of the jets is pointing toward us, the galaxy's AGN is called a blazar. With jets in the plane of the sky and one pointing towards us, PBC J2333.9-2343 has been reclassified as a radio galaxy with a blazar at its center. The team does not yet know what caused the drastic change in direction of the jets. They speculate that it could be a merger with another galaxy or another relatively large object. Another theory is a strong burst of activity in the galactic core after a period of quiescence. Scientists who have studied this galaxy extensively emphasize that they have never seen anything like it before. PBC J2333.9-2343 is unique so far. This galaxy, which is about 4 million light-years large, is probably very old, and it's a wonder how such a galaxy builds up, devours large masses of energy, and wanders through space as a huge monster. The threat to our solar system. The jets are now also pulling the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy in our direction. And we have to wonder, what would come if PBC J2333.9-2343 migrates directly towards us? Would we be in danger? Dr. Lorena Hernandez Garcia, a researcher at the Millennium Institute of Astrophysics and a specialist on the galaxy PBC J2333.9-2343, says no. The black hole is incredibly far from Earth. Even if the supermassive black hole is pointed directly at us, its gravitational effects on Earth are negligible. And even if the entire galaxy is moving toward us, it would take billions of years for it to reach us. Black holes do not emit light or radiation that could harm us at that distance. A supermassive black hole pointed directly at Earth would certainly be a fascinating astronomical phenomenon to observe, but it would pose no threat to our planet. The approach of a black hole to Earth. While it's highly unlikely that a supermassive black hole would approach Earth, if it did, we would probably notice it soon. Let's just assume that such a dark supergiant is indeed coming toward Earth. In that case, the view from Earth would gradually change. At first, such a black hole would not look much different in the sky than a star. The accretion disk around the black hole glows as the hole sucks matter into itself. Over time, as it approaches us, we would find that the light from the stars that are behind the black hole is distorted by its immense gravitational pull. This phenomenon, known as gravitational lensing, would cause stars and other celestial bodies to appear to change position in the sky, when in fact they would remain firmly in place. As the black hole gets closer, its gravitational pull would become stronger and stronger, which could lead to noticeable effects on Earth. The tidal forces of the black hole could affect the oceans, causing extreme tides and possible tsunamis. Earth's rotation could also be affected, resulting in longer or shorter days. Earth's atmosphere would also be affected. Radiation emitted from the black hole's accretion disk could ionize the upper layers of the atmosphere, leading to spectacular auroras, much more intense than anything we have seen before. As the black hole gets closer and closer, its tidal forces would become so strong that they would begin to stretch and deform the Earth itself. This could lead to massive earthquakes and volcanic activity as the Earth's inner core and mantle are disturbed by the gravitational forces. Eventually, if the black hole were close enough, its gravity would begin to tear the Earth apart piece by piece. This process, known as spaghettification, would result in the Earth's matter being pulled into the black hole long before it actually came into contact with the Earth. During this entire process, it would be extremely difficult for life on Earth to sustain itself. The combination of increased radiation, gravitational disturbances, and the physical effects of the black hole's approach would likely cause many life forms to become extinct. The interior of a black hole. As you have now seen, if the black hole sucked in our solar system, we humans and all other living things would be long gone. In order to increase the goosebump effect still just a little bit more, we think to ourselves now, nevertheless, what would happen if you would fall into a black hole? We leave aside the fact that the hole would stretch your matter into spaghetti even before you cross the event horizon, that magical threshold beyond which there is no escape. Inside the hole, you would see for the first time what a singularity really is. This point, to which all matter that sucks in the hole is compressed, is a mystery to science. For a long time, researchers thought it was simply the end of all matter and all physical values that we know. But things are now looking a little different. At the singularity, our possibilities of measurability stop because all known quantities go towards infinity. However, this does not have to mean that nothing more comes there. On the contrary, it's much more probable in the meantime that at thresholds like these, new dimensions or even universes begin. Researchers have found that new universes can be born inside black holes, and that even our own universe could have been created inside a black hole. Perhaps you would be drawn to a completely different world or realize completely new dimensions of our universe. Don't miss the upcoming top videos and press subscribe now. superlative cosmic event will take over our entire world. When Betelgeuse explodes, the night will be as bright as day, and even during the day, you will see a glistening light that will shine brighter than the entire galaxy for a few seconds. Betelgeuse, the brightest star in the constellation Orion, will soon go supernova, and it will be the first supernova visible from Earth since 1604, and you should know this urgently now. Betelgeuse, the brightest star in Orion. Every stargazer and astro friend knows Betelgeuse, the brightest star in the constellation Orion. Its intense red glow and enormous size make it an absolute highlight in the night sky. But what makes Betelgeuse really fascinating is its destiny to rise soon in a tremendous explosion. Betelgeuse has already ballooned into a red giant, and the scientific community is eagerly awaiting the final event. Currently, the star pulsates and flickers, which is a sign that dramatic changes are already taking place inside it. The enormous pulsation causes the star's brightness to fluctuate wildly. Most of the time, it's one of the brightest stars in the sky, and at times it dims its light. Betelgeuse is more than 1,000 times larger than our Sun and a giant of the galaxy. Imagine if we put Betelgeuse in the place of our Sun, it would tower over the position of Jupiter. For a long time, researchers weren't sure when the giant star would move to its final phase. Then suddenly, it began to behave strangely, and astronomers around the world held their breath. Betelgeuse flickers ominously. What has astronomers worried is a dimming of Betelgeuse that was unlike any other light change observed before. In late 2019 and early 2020, the giant's luminosity diminished to such an extreme that some researchers thought the star had now used up its last fuel supplies. Never before have astronomers observed the explosion of a red giant in close proximity. Only far away, in other galaxies, have scientists been able to witness these events. But here, on our own doorstep in the Milky Way, the explosion of an ancient star is an exceptional situation. Scientists are eagerly anticipating the moment, and yet, there is also a queasy feeling associated with the event. Betelgeuse is comparatively close to us, but still far enough away that little impact of the explosion will be felt on Earth. What is certain is that the explosion will be eminently visible from Earth. An incredible stream of neutrinos will race through space and pass by us as well. Our measuring instruments will pick up the finest gravitational waves triggered by the explosion, but the debris that could cause great damage will stay far enough away. Betelgeuse's eclipsing event, nevertheless, sparked concern among scientists. They had grown accustomed to the giant old star, and somehow astronomers don't want to miss the sight. If Betelgeuse explodes, the object that researchers studied for decades will be gone within seconds. Only a neutron star or a black hole will remain. A superlative mass ejection. Betelgeuse's strange behavior led to numerous speculations and theories about the true cause of the eclipse. Based on data from the Hubble telescope, scientists finally found the answer. The data revealed that the star had ejected a massive dust cloud that partially hid its light from our view. So, the star had only shrouded itself, not changed its actual brightness. In February 2020, the darkness increased once again. Again, researchers searched Hubble's data, and again, evidence of the ejection of a dark cloud was found. What had happened? Betelgeuse's flickering is normal to some degree. Since we have known and intensively observed the star, its flickering and pulsing has followed a very precise cycle. Every 400 days, the giant dimmed its light, then lit up again. The event at the end of 2019 was named Great Dimming, after which Betelgeuse had lost its natural 400-day rhythm. For almost 2 centuries this went on, then suddenly the star changed its behavior and scientists were baffled. Where did the cloud come from, and what did it mean? After several weeks of intensive search, all the questions about the Great Dimming were solved. Betelgeuse had experienced something that scientists had not thought possible. In this remarkable astronomical event, the star ejected a tremendous amount of material into space, creating the dust clouds. Such behavior is highly unusual for a star of Betelgeuse's size and life stage. Coronal mass ejections, or CMEs for short, of our Sun are very similar events in which the Sun ejects large amounts of plasma and magnetized particle streams into space. Betelgeuse's mass ejections were similar to those of our Sun, yet quite different. CMEs are often associated with sunspots and magnetic activity on the sun, while Betelgeuse's mass ejection was likely caused by internal processes within the star itself. Betelgeuse was not supposed to behave this way, and the event was unique in the observation of the star. When did Betelgeuse explode? Aside from the shock of the Great Dimming, researchers have calculated that the explosion is likely to last quite a while. Whether in 100 or 10,000 years, however, is not entirely clear. Scientists have simulated the life stages of stars dozens of times through observations and mathematical equations. Still, they can't be entirely sure. When Betelgeuse became strangely dimmer, some scientists already expected an unscheduled explosion. Hideyuki Seo, an astronomer at Tohoku University in Japan, also claims that previous calculations of Betelgeuse's expected lifetime were wrong. The star could be much further along in its evolution, and thus would be closer to the final stage than we thought. But how did the Japanese astronomer and his team come up with this? Again, it's the pulsations of the star. Betelgeuse's flickering shows how unstable the star already is. Tracking its brightness over the last century, astronomers have detected changes over periods of 2,200 days, 420 days, 230 days, and 185 days. Normal is the 420-day up and down dimming. Every 2,200 days, or about 6 years, Betelgeuse deviates from this rhythm and shows sharp changes in its brightness outside the normal cycle. Previously, the 420-day period was considered the primary, and the 2,200-day period is correspondingly the secondary. However, the Japanese astronomer and his colleagues believe that the 2,200-day cycle is the primary, and everything else represents deviations from this 6-year rhythm. At first, this seems like splitting hairs to the layman, but in fact, astronomical and physical science yield different scenarios depending on which of the two cycles forms the basis. Consistent with its enormous larger size, and if the Japanese astronomer is correct, the star would have progressed even further in its life cycle. Stars like Betelgeuse are altogether more fast-moving than our Sun. Even when Betelgeuse was a normal star, it far surpassed our Sun. Like our Sun, it was initially a star that fused hydrogen into helium at its core. But Betelgeuse began to fuse helium to carbon much earlier than our Sun. Carbon, in turn, produces heavier elements, and lighter elements burn around the core, causing the star to expand like a hot plasma balloon. The Japanese researcher and his colleagues use computer simulations to observe stars from birth to old age, then calculate the pulsations they should see at each stage. They found that all 4 pulsations, from the 2,200-day cycle to the 185-day cycle, can be compared to a breathing star in the late stages of carbon burning. When the carbon in the core is also exhausted, a core collapse is expected, leading to a supernova explosion in a few decades. Does this mean Betelgeuse is already running out of carbon? Although Seo and his team have presented convincing calculations, even the Japanese researchers cannot prove for sure that this is the case. So far, researchers assume that pulsation periods do not change much at this late stage. Still, it is not possible to estimate exactly how much carbon is left in the star's core. Seo is certain, however, that the time to carbon depletion is less than a few hundred years. The new study led to some misunderstandings, and Seo's name was explained in connection with predictions of an imminent supernova. But the scientists set such misstatements straight, stressing that it did not say that Betelgeuse would explode tomorrow or in a few weeks. He had merely not concluded that the supernova was thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years away, but only a few hundred years. The 2,200-day pulsation, if it is radial, creates another problem. Spectroscopic measurements show that the surface of the star expands and contracts at about 1.5 kilometers per second. If the star breathes at this rate over the 2,200-day period, its total diameter would increase 180 sun sizes in each cycle and then decrease again. Even for a red giant like Betelgeuse, this is enormous. The rhythm of expansion does not fit the assumption that the 400-day period is the base. Rather, this rate of expansion argues that the 2,200-day pulsation must serve as the measure of first rings. The swells occur from the time a star runs out of hydrogen, at which point it begins to fuse helium, causing the star to increase in circumference. When all the fuel has burned up and the remaining elements have become too heavy and unburnable, the core collapses under its own weight. Betelgeuse is estimated to be 8 million years old. Before Betelgeuse became a red giant, it was a main sequence star of type O. Stars of this type are very massive, hot, and luminous. They have temperatures above 30,000 Kelvin and are blue-white in color. Because of their enormous mass, they consume their nuclear fuel very quickly, and therefore have short lifetimes compared to less massive stars. Our Sun, which is much smaller, is already 4.5 billion years old and probably only in its midlife. A unique event. So exactly when Betelgeuse will explode remains a mystery. If it happens, we experience a spectacle that is to be seen in such a way only every few hundred years. Statistically, every 50 to 100 years, a star explodes in the Milky Way. The last supernova visible from Earth occurred in 1604. In the 1980s, measurements of gravitational waves showed that there was an explosion within the galaxy, but we could not see it. Betelgeuse is 500 to 700 light-years from us, which is very close on cosmic scales. If the star explodes, it will shine brighter for a few moments than all the stars in the galaxy combined. At night, a bright flash would illuminate the Earth, and even during the day, you might see a glistening bright light. After the actual explosion, dust and debris would shine brightly for weeks. Where Betelgeuse once was would be a bright white spot of light. The light from the 1604 supernova was described by eyewitnesses as brighter than the moon. At the time, astronomers thought the event was the birth of a new star and called it a supernova. Don't miss the upcoming top videos and subscribe to our channel now. Something many people don't know is that most of the water outside of Earth is found on moons beyond Jupiter. NASA reveals first real images of Europa, and they prove that this moon of Jupiter is home to a massive ocean of salt water and possibly life. You may already know the moon Europa from a popular computer game, and now we'll show you why that computer game might be right. Europa, the discovery of the icy moon. The discovery of Jupiter's moon Europa was made in 1610 by the famous Italian scholar Galileo Galilei. With the help of a relatively simple telescope, Galileo, a passionate astronomer and naturalist, focused his gaze on the planet Jupiter and discovered 4 large moons, which we know today as the Galilean moons. Strictly speaking, these are the moons Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. The name Europa comes from Greek mythology. Europa was a Phoenician princess who was desired by Zeus, the father of the gods. In a famous legend, Zeus transformed himself into a bull to kidnap Europa and take her across the sea to Crete, where she became the mother of King Minos. Jupiter is the Roman equivalent of Zeus and Io. Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto are all mystical figures of the Greek and Roman gods. Europa is the smallest of the 4 Galilean moons and the 6th largest moon in the entire solar system. With a diameter of about 3,121 kilometers, it is slightly smaller than our own moon. Despite its smaller size, Europa is a fascinating object of study for astronomers and space explorers. Europa's surface is mainly covered by ice, making Europa an icy moon. The thick, icy crust is crisscrossed by numerous cracks, crevices, and furrows. The animated upper part of Europa soon led researchers to conclude that there must be pronounced geologic activity inside the moon. The first photos taken of Europa by the Galileo spacecraft showed strong evidence that an ocean of liquid water exists beneath this icy surface, possibly containing more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. Europa's reflectivity, or albedo, is one of the highest in the solar system. As a result, Europa shines very brightly. The reason for this is its icy, relatively young, and therefore little weathered surface, which reflects a lot of sunlight. Scientists know very little about the tidal forces. Presumably, they are triggered by the proximity to Jupiter. The stress relationship with its planet stretches and expands the moon, creating geothermal activity beneath the surface. This geothermal activity, in turn, could play an important role in maintaining the liquid ocean beneath the icy crust. The potential subsurface ocean and the possibility of life will soon be explored by a new NASA mission. Unique geological activity. Geological activity, such as movements of crusts and plates, heat in the interior, or even different layers of rock, ice, magma, or hot water springs, are far from a given in the solar system. There are planets and moons that are almost solidified. Their cores behave quite differently than, for example, the very hot and active core of the Earth, or the objects have, like many moons, no real active core at all. The surface of Europa paints a very animated picture of a fascinating mosaic of cracks, fissures, and icy plains. These geologic features are not accidental, but the result of intense geologic activity taking place deep beneath the moon's icy surface. There must be an interesting connection between the heat within, the vast ocean suspected to be beneath Europa's icy crust, and the tidal forces of Jupiter. Again, it's Galileo's images that allow accurate observations for the first time. Later, observations by Hubble showed changes in the upper layers that took place in a few years. So, the moon is still active and changes its face constantly. The tidal forces caused by Jupiter's gravity generate heat through friction. This heat could cause ice at the base of the crust to melt and water to flow into an ocean below. Presumably, geothermal energy causes water from the ocean to rise to the surface, constantly forming new layers of ice. Pronounced cryovolcanism drives water or other liquid substances from the interior of the moon to the surface. According to calculations, this cryovolcanism could be a source for the emergence of life on the moon. Life despite extreme radiation. Life on Europa sounds promising, but there's a small catch that scientists don't yet know how it affects the emergence of life. Europa moves in an extremely intense radiation belt from Jupiter. This radiation is so intense that it would be lethal for us humans if we were to stay near the moon without sufficient protection. The radiation comes mainly from the myriads of charged particles that cavort in Jupiter's magnetic field. Despite these extreme conditions, there are theories that suggest, or even prove, that microorganisms can live in such conditions. Proof of this is that on our Earth, where researchers have found microbes in the vicinity of strong radiation sources that easily defy these conditions. Indeed, the microbes seem to thrive near the radiation. These extremophile organisms are the subject of much research. Researchers want to know more about how these simple life forms have managed to withstand the harmful effects of radiation and reproduce in such hostile environments. It's fascinating that despite the extreme conditions that exist on Europa, the possibility of life absolutely exists. The combination of geological activity, the presence of an ocean beneath the surface, and the extreme radiation makes Europa one of the most interesting places in our solar system to search for extraterrestrial life. Salt keeps water liquid. Salt water has a very different freezing point than fresh water. Analyses of Europa's light spectrum have shown that there must be salt on the surface of the moon. This salt could indicate that Europa's subsurface ocean is also salty, much like the oceans of Earth. The discovery of salt on Europa's surface is particularly exciting because salt, when combined with water, is often considered an indicator of potential life. Salty oceans on Earth host a variety of life forms, from tiny microorganisms to large marine animals. We humans and all animals that live on land today also evolved from creatures living in salt water. The presence of salt in the waters of Europa would mean that optimal conditions for life could exist here as well, and that there may be a colorful variety of creatures in the deep. In Antarctica, drilling has shown that completely self-sufficient biosystems thrive under 1 kilometer thick ice, producing unique creatures and a great abundance of life forms to boot. This life thrives in the cold and without light here on Earth. Finds like these give researchers renewed courage not to give up hope of finding extraterrestrial life. The salty nature of the water could also indicate that Europa's ocean is in constant interaction with the rocks on the ocean floor. On Earth, interactions such as these release important minerals and nutrients into the ocean that are necessary for the origin and maintenance of life. It remains to be seen what the planned JUICE mission will reveal about Europa's secrets and its potential as a home for extraterrestrial life. Is Europa a new Earth? Probably quite a few of you know the popular computer game Destiny 2 Beyond Light, and then you already know the moon Europa. In the expansion pack of the game, Destiny 2, Europa is introduced as a new icy frontier land. As a player, you will be able to explore the frozen wastelands, deep canyons, and ancient facilities built by humanity that are now occupied by enemy factions. The representation of Europa in the game is not just an icy wilderness. The moon is a place full of secrets and hidden technologies. The ruins of ancient civilizations and the presence of advanced technology scattered throughout the ice fields paint a picture of a moon that has been visited by many species. But can the game become truth, and can we humans eventually settle there? Europa has an extremely thin atmosphere, composed mainly of oxygen, but it's very likely much too thin to support the breathing of us humans. We have already talked about the intense radiation. It's not known whether or how long humans can endure it. What is certain in any case is that humans could exist on the moon only with artificially created life support systems. For humans, moreover, the gravity on the moon would take some getting used to. With only 13.4% of the gravity on Earth's surface, humans would be much lighter there. Someone who weighs 100 kilograms on Earth would weigh only about 13.4 kilograms on Europa. Visitors would therefore find it difficult to move around. Muscles would deteriorate in the long term, and presumably our bones would also suffer quite a bit. If visitors to Europa were to return to Earth, they would have to expect to feel unusually heavy. Europa and the JUICE mission. JUICE stands for Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer and is ESA's latest stroke of genius. The European Space Agency is going heavy and launched its new stroke of genius on April 14, 2023, from the Guyana Space Center in French Guiana. The main goal of the JUICE mission is to study Ganymede, Europa, and Callisto. All of these moons harbor large amounts of water and are potential habitats. The probe will study all three moons up close and give us new impressions of Jupiter itself. The main objective of the JUICE mission is to study the conditions for planet formation and the potential for life beyond Earth in the icy moons of the outer solar system. Europa is the focus of the mission, and JUICE may bring entirely new clues to traces of life. When the probe arrives after several years of flight, it will fly over the moons at close range and very likely give us better photos than ever before. Now that researchers know what to look for, JUICE could be designed and equipped to take measurements that point to specific minerals and biomarkers. Whether the mission can already provide evidence of life on Europa remains to be seen. NASA is also currently planning a mission to put ice drills on the moon. Intelligent and nearly autonomous drilling systems will bore into the depths of the ice, using camera systems and perhaps mini submarines to search for life. Subscribe to our channel now and look forward to upcoming video hits. Finally, NASA breaks its silence. Yes, there is an ocean world on Saturn's moon Enceladus. This gives us a hot candidate for life in the solar system. Enceladus is one of Saturn's largest moons and is bubbling with ice volcanism. But that's not all. This moon also hosts one of the largest saltwater oceans in the entire solar system. What researchers discovered there and what this snake drill, is all about will leave you speechless. Enceladus, an active ice moon. For a long time, researchers assumed there wasn't much going on the moons in the solar system. Too small, too cold, too far away, and too dark. But that was a mistake. Since the best probes that humans have ever built have been investigating the solar system ever more intensively, we know on Enceladus and on many other bodies in the solar system, there is liquid water. Yes, you heard right. Although these moons are icy cold on the surface, they harbor liquid water in the depth. This mystery applies not only to Enceladus, but to a whole host of moons and some dwarf planets on the edge of the Kuiper Belt. The James Webb Space Telescope has now made an additional discovery on Enceladus that has confirmed the long-suspected presence of large amounts of liquid water. The moon, tiny compared to Saturn, shoots gigantic fountains of water into space. This water vapor forms a trail in the fantastic rings of the gas giant Saturn. Cryovolcanoes bubble in the depths of this celestial body, which only looks dull and frozen at first glance. Incredible things must be going on inside the moon, and possibly an ocean harbors life forms we could not have imagined before. What did James Webb find? James Webb's images show dozens of ice fountains forming over cracks in the ice. Shining brightly, they stand out against the dark space. These fantastic formations can be seen thanks to special filtering techniques used by Webb's cameras. The fountains can extend hundreds of kilometers from the surface. When a team of NASA researchers took a closer look at the latest images, they saw a fountain near the moon's south pole that was much larger than any of the others. At more than 9,500 kilometers long, the fountain is the largest ejection of water ever seen in space. Imagine this fountain being 20 times taller than Enceladus is wide and extending far enough to reach from North Cape to Malta. James Webb's photos show Enceladus forming a ghostly halo around the planet Saturn with its water vapor fountain. This high level of water activity makes Enceladus the main source of water in the entire Saturn system. The halo, or torus, left by Enceladus forms most of Saturn's E-ring, the largest outer ring. Webb's instruments were also able to determine that most of the water droplets are emitted into space from the vapor that Enceladus regularly emits. During its 33-hour orbit, the moon sprays water vapor far around Saturn. Its mega fountain blows an astonishing 300 liters per second into space as it does so. Webb's observations showed that about 30% of this water remains in the moon's immediate vicinity, while 70% is dispersed throughout the Saturn system. James Webb can do much more than take impressive photos. The light emissions from the water vapor fountains are an open book for this super telescope. In the water, or rather the spectrum of light scattered by that water, researchers found evidence of organic compounds that can react chemically to produce amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of life on Earth. Perhaps a future cryovolcanic eruption captured by Webb will show us signs of life in the moon's hidden ocean world. On the trail of life with drills. That Enceladus has sub-Iridian oceans is already known from some of Hubble's photos. Measurements have shown that one of the largest oceans of the solar system must be located inside and under kilometer-thick ice. Already before James Webb, NASA had already planned an expedition to this moon. Modern drilling systems are to bore into the depths of the ice and search for life there. The prototype drill that will eventually make the journey into space is a high-tech instrument that moves through the ice like a snake. This state-of-the-art device not only looks like a snake, but was inspired by the movement of animals that move gracefully on land and in water. Scientists will use the snake drill to bore through Enceladus's thick ice and take samples from its subsurface ocean. NASA and other international partners are planning an ambitious mission to Enceladus to launch later this decade. Scientists believe the hydrothermal vents on Enceladus's seafloor could provide the perfect environment for microbial life, much like the black smokers in the depths of our own oceans. The planned mission will not only use snake drills, but will also carry a suite of other advanced instruments that can accurately analyze the chemical composition of the water and search for signs of life. Wet chemistry is an analytical method that uses colorimetry, gravimetry, and titration to detect elements and compounds in liquid samples. Elemental analysis determines the elements present in compounds, especially nonmetals such as carbon and hydrogen. A robot or probe equipped with such an instrument could determine the exact chemical composition of water to provide clues to possible organic compounds or other elements essential to life. To do this, the probe would not even have to drill down to depth. A sample from one of the fountains would probably be enough to find traces of carbon, amino acids, and life. In addition to organic analysis, probes with specialized sensors could detect the presence of minerals or other compounds in the fountains. These sensors could send real-time data to Earth for rapid interpretation and response to detected anomalies. For practical applications on Enceladus, these instruments and techniques will be integrated into autonomously operating robots and probes. Currently, the best engineers and most innovative minds in the world are working on the techniques that will be capable of operating in the extreme environment of the moon. These robots could land on the surface and position themselves near active fountains to take direct samples. Alternatively, flying probes could pass through the fountains and collect samples from the water vapor cloud. The integration of real-time analyzers would allow data to be processed immediately and provide valuable information about the chemical composition and potential for life on Enceladus. This is what life on Enceladus could look like. Are you now also wondering what life on Enceladus might look like, how it evolved, and where it came from? Let's take a fictional trip to the moon and back in time together. Billions of years ago, when the solar system was young, a comet collided with Enceladus. This comet was not just any comet. It carried with it tiny, primitive bacteria from the farthest reaches of the universe. When the comet impacted, these bacteria merged with Enceladus's icy waters and began to multiply in the deep, warm oceans beneath the ice crust. In this dark, high-pressure environment, far from sunlight and oxygen, these bacteria evolved in amazing ways. They learned to harness the geothermal energy of hydrothermal vents. In this world of perpetual ice and darkness, luminous bioluminescent creatures emerged, filling the depths with a shimmering bluish light. Time passed, and life on Enceladus took on ever more complex forms. Fascinating creatures emerged that had adapted to extreme conditions. Giant, transparent jellyfish with long tentacles that emit electrical pulses. Fish-like creatures with antennae that can receive radio waves, and microscopic organisms that live in symbiosis with the larger creatures, helping them filter nutrients from the water. Some scientists believe Enceladus has existed for billions of years. Life may have evolved long before life began on Earth. Other scientists speculate that life developed more recently, when conditions on Enceladus became favorable. If life does exist on Enceladus, could it evolve in a similar way to Earth, when sea creatures eventually became mammals and eventually humans? This is an exciting question, and astrobiologists always assume that life adapts perfectly to its environment. Evolution can occur, but it does not have to. On Earth, living fossils show that animal species existed for millions of years without changing in any significant way. Other species, however, undergo dramatic changes in the same time. What is certain is that eventual life on Enceladus is perfectly adapted to local conditions. The oceans on the moon are vast habitats. We don't know what forms of life may exist there, until we may one day see it for ourselves with our own eyes. James Webb sets his eyes on Enceladus again. Recently, NASA published a list of other upcoming observations by James Webb. Among them was another ambitious project that will bring Enceladus back into focus. The follow-up project will take 6 times as long as the first study and aims to uncover the first chemical compounds associated with life. Based on this new data, NASA will then direct its further efforts to unlock the moon's secrets. If researchers find evidence of organic compounds, the probabilities increase that drills and probes will soon show us images of the first living things that exist beyond Earth. The Cassini spacecraft has already provided the first evidence of hydrogen peroxide, a substance that is considered a biomarker in space research. Cassini already provided data on why a moon so far from the Sun is so active, as is the case with Enceladus. The moon is tiny compared to Saturn, yet at 500 kilometers across, it's one of the largest moons in the solar system. The activity and heat inside could be explained by its proximity to Saturn and its immense magnetic forces. Further out in space, researchers found dwarf planets that must also have traces of ice volcanism and thus a warm core. For these planets, proximity to a magnetically strong planet can be virtually ruled out as a cause of geothermal activity. However, it's possible that Enceladus was also a dwarf planet that was eventually attracted and captured by Saturn's gravity. Not much is known yet about the exact formation of the moons in the solar system. All we know is that Europa, one of Jupiter's largest moons, Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Ganymede, and Callisto are also extraordinarily rocky, icy, watery worlds that could harbor life. Click the subscribe button now for more exciting videos.